Hey, it's Phil Stacy, Executive Sports Editor at the Salem News. Once again, joined by my compatriots and friends, Matt Williams, Assistant Sports Editor, Nick Giannino, Sports Editor of Gloucester Times. We're here for another Bandied About Sports podcast. Gentlemen, how are you here today on this? I guess we're actually the official midpoint of October today.
Yeah, and celebrating one Matt Williams' birthday, right? The big 4-0, Willie. Happy
Yeah,
birthday.
40 yesterday.
Sure.
Attaboy.
Yeah,
Attaboy. All right. Let's dive right in with that same amount of enthusiasm. We're less really than 2 weeks away from the end of the regular season for all non-football sports. And we've all seen the power rankings now for a few weeks in the various sport and the changes that we've seen and whatnot. So let me start by throwing this out to you guys. Let me start with you, Nick. We'll touch on Cape Ann here. Who do you see as position themselves well for a nice tournament run or put themselves in a good position where they have some momentum heading into the tournament, maybe even if they don't have the highest seed?
Sure. Well, I think it's obvious we can start with Manchester Essex field hockey. They got a couple big games coming up. I think Masco today, right, Phil, on Wednesday, and they got Ipswich coming up as well. But they're sitting in the top 10 in Division 4. I think number 6 or 7 last time I looked, and I just spoke with Abby Kent, their junior star over there yesterday. She just committed to Holy Cross Division 1 program, so congratulations to her.
They're leading the area in scoring, I believe.
Yeah, she's got she kind of does it all. I mean, she's got double-digit assists, double-digit goals. When I talk to her, she'd rather be a distributor. It's obvious that she can score goals and she's going to get her share of those, but she's really running the show for them, directing, traffic and all that, getting them out on the attack. And they've had a pretty great season so far. I think only a couple losses, and they play a pretty difficult schedule as well. So let me see, Division 4.
Yeah, they played was it Sandwich recently down the Cape, and Sandwich I think is like 14-0-0.
Yeah, and they shut them out.
They lost. Manchester lost.
Yeah, Sandwich shut them out, but it was a competitive game.
And that's what you're going to see come the postseason, as we know. This is why the teams schedule games like this. They're in a higher division. I believe they're Division 3 Sandwich, if not 2. I think they're Division 3.
Yeah, they're definitely not 4. I'm looking at the brackets right here, and that was only one of their 2 losses. They're 9-2-2. The Hornets, and obviously they're going to have their hands full with Masco today, and again Ipswich is a pretty strong squad. I think they beat them 1-0 last time around. Manchester did, but that's a team that I think can definitely make a run in Division 4. Obviously Uxbridge and Sutton at the top; those are some really good teams. Even Linfield is having a great season in the Cape Ann League. So, but Abby Kent. I mean, when you have a player like that, it makes such a big difference in the playoffs. And then add in, you got a star goalie in Bridget Caravallano, who, her stats might not jump off the page in terms of saves this year, but I think that's more because their defense has been so strong. She hasn't faced a ton of shots. She's going to Division 1 for lacrosse to play goalie at University of North Carolina next year. So they got some terrific athletes on that team, other girls that are chipping in as well. And I think they're poised for a big run. And then sticking with the Hornets, really liking what the boys soccer team has been doing. They're coming off another win last night, a gritty win over Rockport down in Rockport on that grass field. Rockport's a team that is not having a lot of wins this year, but all their games seem to be close. And Manchester was without like three of their better players. Sammy Bothwell, the area's leading scorer, Cape Ann and North Shore area, scored the only goal in that one on a penalty kick. So the Hornets boys soccer in Division 4 are in the top 10 as well. 10-3-1 now, I believe. And that's a team that won just 4 games last year, so they've come a long way.
Willie, certainly a lot to pick from our Salem News area of teams that have positioned themselves nicely as we get closer and closer to the end of the regular season. Who's jumped out at you as somebody that could really make a nice long run?
I think the usual suspects, right? I mean, that this is the power ranking world. It's kind of the same squads, but I mean, how do you not start with Vasco girls? I mean, number one, they've been number one in the Division II power rankings, I think every ranking for over 2 years now. So, you got to really start in there. And I think that they've kind of made some of the other teams look bad. And then when you start looking through the power rankings, you say, wow, some of these teams are rated pretty highly. I look at Marblehead is number 6 in Division II. I mean, that's nothing to shake a stick at. 7-3-4, not an amazing record, but to be number 6, like you're going deep, right? I mean, these power rankings, as we've seen, most of the teams in the top 10 are getting to at least the third round. So 6, I mean, that's pretty legit. So good going for them. They have a lot of twins over there. Gilmore's been scoring. They've had a lot of injuries to some of their older players, and the younger players have stepped up and played very well. So I would say, that's a team that's in the weeds a little bit that we haven't talked about that much.
Yeah.
I would say the same for Danvers, only in the sense that, again, they lose to Masco 6-0 last week. And, you look at that and say, wow, that's, one of the worst losses in Danvers girls soccer history in terms of the score.
Yeah.
And you look, they're still number 5 in Division III, right? So,
Right.
Last year they played so defense, lost some games. I think they ended up seeded, 12, 13, something like this. You go to, you're seeded 5. You got a legit chance to get to the final 8, the final 4. So I think their chances in the state tournament are better than they appear based on that ranking. And I would go quickly to the Cape Ann League as well. One team we haven't talked about a whole ton is Hamilton Wenham. Now, Masconomet, again, casts this enormous shadow with this Lamborghini of a team that they have, unbeaten regular season for almost 60 straight games. Now, Hamilton Wenham's unbeaten regular season 35 straight games. Now, in a normal season, we'd be talking a lot about that, right? That would be the number one highlight,
Yeah.
thing. And Masco, what they're doing just kind of, again, casts that long shadow. But the Generals are number 3. Linfield is number 2. Now, that was the state semifinal a year ago. They could be on a collision course once again. But, I really like the way that Hamilton Wenham is playing, distributing up front. They've got now 3 double-digit scorers, which makes things pretty dangerous. They have won 7 in a row since starting out the season 3-0-3. They've hung 4 consecutive shutouts, which shows me that they've sorted out their defense a little bit, which relative to them, I mean, Hamilton Wenham, I believe, only allowed 2 goals the entire regular season last year. And they gave up 6 or 7 in those first 6 games, which, again, is pretty good for most people. But for them, they expect to kind of shut out everybody. And so those 4 consecutive shutouts in Cape Ann League play tell me that they have sorted things out a little bit there. So I wouldn't want to forget about the Gens. But, I mean, that's what? 4 different teams from our area that are all rated within the top 6 of different divisions. I mean, I think that's pretty impressive. That's a lot of lottery tickets to buy, and you'd think one of them is going to hit. So I think that's really kind of my take is that some of these teams behind Masco are actually a lot better than they look against Masco when you look at these power rankings and see where they're kind of stacking up.
I didn't think you were a shutouts guy. I thought you were more of a clean sheets guy. I was
I
surprised.
mean, it's getting to be Halloween time, so we got to make sure that we're ready with those sheets. Cut the eyes out and draw the little faces, for Casper and everything.
Yeah,
It's funny you say that, Bill. Either of you guys watch Wrexham? Welcome to Wrexham.
Sporadically, I've seen it, but I don't it's not appointment viewing.
So it's a documentary where Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, the guy from Always Sunny, purchase a European football team in I think it's Wales.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that they always say clean sheet. I've never heard them say shutout.
Really?
So I guess that's the real football as they say it. They always say clean sheet. Yeah, never shutout.
I just like to mix it up, so you're not.
Yeah,
repeating the same
I use
thing.
both,
That's all.
But
well, Nick, as we know, you are a big football and on the pitch guy. Those are kind of your go-to sayings there.
Yep, pitch, football, match,
Yeah,
rather than
match,
game.
nil.
Yeah, nil. There's some good terms for soccer. I do like to get creative there.
Well, staying on the pitch, so to speak, I would say it looks like, guys, we have some boys teams that could make some noise too. If you start in Division One, St. John's Prep, probably not a surprise that I think they were ranked 4th in the latest power rankings. State titleist 2 years ago, another really strong team this year. I was over there last week and featured their team and how they've had a lot more injuries than in the past. At least Dave Kroll said it was a season like that he's never had before, but they have the depth, obviously, and the talent over there to see guys step up and make a difference. Beverly, which still leads the Northeastern Conference, I want to say they were in the 20s, maybe 24th or 26th. But Nick, you know that team. That's not a team that is going to take a back seat to anybody, no matter what the ranking is. Come tournament time, they're going to be a tough out for somebody. I'm guessing.
Absolutely. Well, it was just last year they were probably ranked similar to that. Maybe a little higher than 26, maybe top 20, but and they went on the road.
They were like 25 last year.
Yeah, they don't get much love, and that's a talented team. They're going toe to toe. We talked about them beating Masco earlier this season. And obviously Division One is a gauntlet, but they had that nice run last year, getting to the Elite Eight, I think it was. And they
did, yeah. They won 2 road games right before they got
2 road games, and they went and they played. I think it was Concord Carlisle, who had a phenomenal team, and they hung with them. Concord was blowing out everyone, and that was like one of their more competitive, close games. In that one, I think Beverly was able to put a goal in, and it ended up being a pretty good battle. So yeah, they're definitely battle tested, and they got a lot of the same guys back. Edgar De Leon does a great job over there. So yeah, I don't think you'd want to face Beverly in any of these early rounds. And well, maybe they can improve their ranking a little bit, but 26, kind of crazy. You got teams that are 500 that are. BC High 3, 5, and 4. We know the schedule they play, but they're up at number 12. That kind of jumps out to me. And then you got a Beverly team with 9 wins that's all the way down to 26. So and quickly with St. John's Prep, Phil, they got back Garrison Murphy, right?
They did, yeah, and he's been on a scoring tear ever since he came back.
Yeah, that's a huge get because he is a super talented player, had a great season last year, and he's going to take over that leading goal scorer.
He already has. He's already the leading scorer in like 4 games played.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. He's a really good player, and good to see him back out there.
Well, you mentioned Masconomet earlier. They're not going anywhere in Division 2. They're clearly going to be a factor there. Mm-hmm. And a team that we don't talk a lot about, Marblehead, as of right now, they've got a home game. They've been playing everybody tough. We know that the kind of talent they have, and the game they play, it's gritty. It's not the prettiest, but they find a way to get it done with guys like Jared Halpern. I'm trying to think who else I see in the scoring. Miles Fontella Tuttle is in there.
Kyle Hart's a pretty good player.
Yeah. Island Drucker. Geez, who else? I can't think of it. Rory, what's his name?
Rory Zampies is the goalie. He's having a great year.
Yeah, the goalie. That's right, Rory Zampies. Yeah. So that's another team that I think maybe people don't look at the conference as being particularly strong in boys soccer, but I think maybe you trade some of that for being battle tested, where these guys have close games continually. Salem tied Masconomet earlier this year. There's a ton of 1-goal games within the conference because it's that tough. So,
yep, and I still don't understand why Marblehead's in Division 2. I think if they were in 3, they'd probably be a top 10 seed right now. And shout out to Elmer Magana, the coach, for kind of beefing up their schedule. He's made that a point in the past few years, kind of realizing this power ranking system that you got to play, some out of conference tests, and he's done that. So they're right in the mix. What I say, 15, and Masco's 11 in D2. So
yep. Willie, when we talk volleyball, it kind of starts and ends with Ipswich. We know they've won 3 straight Division IV state titles. We know that they've won over 40 matches. We know they're undefeated this year. We know they have to go into the playoffs as the favorite to win Division IV. But what about some of our other teams? I know Masconomet's had a great year. They only have, what, 2 losses so far this year? Marblehead is another team that's performed very, very well. I think Bishop Fenwick maybe has 11 or 12 wins so far. Can anybody else locally emerge from that, first, second round and get themselves into a state quarterfinal, do you think?
I mean, not according to the power rankings, but we'll see. Masco is, I think, our best team. And I don't know what would happen if they played Ipswich, take them out of it because of the divisions and everything. But Masco is the best team in the NEC, and I think they're 12th. So,
Yeah.
you don't often see 12s getting through it. I think Fenwick's 8th, so I like that. I mean, 8's pretty good. Eight's a good chance to get to the final 8, but then, you line up potentially against a number 1 seed, which
Yeah.
is tough. But I don't dislike that. I mean, I think Marblehead's in the low 20s. Danvers, which I think of as a really good team, is like 29th. That seems low for them. I know they're only 8-6, but they play a really tough schedule. They
Yeah, I
play
mean, they
those
go out and they
down
play
the
like
Cape. I
Dennis
mean,
Yarmouth and teams like that. Yeah.
yeah, Barnstable. I mean, these are like some of the best teams in the state. I believe they maybe have played Fenwick too. So I mean, I think they're pretty good. Like I would like them as a 29 to win like a first round game, right? But to put together several in a row seems daunting at that low of a seed, as we've seen with these rankings do tend to be either one accurate or two kind of self-fulfilling prophecies, because you just have to play so many good teams that it's hard to be consistent. So I mean, if I had to put my money on one team besides Ipswich, I think it would probably be Fenwick. I do really like the way they play. If they get home matches too, I mean, that gym is like small, it's
Yeah.
stifling. You get a good crowd in there. That's like a really, I think, a significant home field, home court, home gym advantage for the Crusaders, which I think could play a role here or there. So that's definitely a check in their favor. So I guess I would say Hamilton. I would say Fenwick first, just based on the division, and then I would put Masco second. Just I think Division 2 is just so stacked and so difficult that some of these teams they would have to play. I mean, Hopkinton, Oliver Ames, Duxbury. I mean, these are teams that are like just kind of always there in that Division 2, that sort of South power, right? I mean, in the old days, I would like Masco or Marblehead to win the North, right?
Yeah.
But
Right.
now you're going to play those South teams in the second round or the third round if you're lucky. It's just a lot harder to get through.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Just crossing sports for a minute here, Nick. I know you mentioned earlier, like, oh, it's crazy that Marblehead plays Division II in boys soccer. I think of that a lot when I see where Essex Tech is in the various sports. Now, granted, it's a big school. We know that. But I would say the percentage of kids playing athletics at a technical school is far less than it would be at, say, your quote unquote regular public school.
Right.
So, for instance, like I see Essex Tech is number 1. Is ranked in Division 1 in field hockey pairings, which to me it's like, I don't know about that, and they're having a nice season. They're right around 500.
Yep.
They're in the playoffs, if the season were to end today. But is it really fair for them to have to go up and take on a team that might be, currently like 11-2 in the first round of a playoffs, an established team like an Andover or Wachusett or something like that? I don't think so necessarily. But hey,
Well, are they a co-op still, Phil? Is that what that is?
They might still grab kids from Georgetown. That's a good question, Willie.
Yes,
I guess maybe they do. Yeah.
I think that's why they get. I mean, they're in a higher division than they probably should be in every sport. But I think specific to field hockey, they're in one because they take. I think if you co-op, you kind of have to add the enrollments together, and you kind of end up, getting the short end of the stick on that one.
And maybe that's why they're not in hockey, because they just have their own kids, their own program, and they're where they belong in Division III. So, there's probably some truth to what you're saying there.
Well, and they
Cool.
were
Two
two for
divisions
years and
though.
years, and as we know, the boys hockey people kind of do what they want, but yeah, I mean, it's because they're what are they? What are they? 3 or 4 in football? We said they'd have to play like Marblehead or something if they made the playoffs.
They're 4, yeah, which,
So
yeah.
they're in a higher division than Fenwick is, which is like laughable. 2 divisions higher than St. Mary's. What are we doing?
Yeah, they should be 6, if not 7, to be honest. But
Which will be interesting to see if they remain in the Cape Ann League large. Uh, as we've seen, that's a sort of a different side of the same coin to where I would say they tend to be more competitive with the Ipswiches, the Hamiltons. I mean, I think you look at a school
now,
like
yeah,
Linfield. I know the total population number is different, but if you go by percentage, participation, and you look at where Linfield is, especially in the girls' sports and all these power rankings, they're top 5 in like what 3 different sports.
yeah.
So, if I was aligning the Cal, I might put Linfield in the Kinney and Essex Tech in a Baker, but I don't have those privileges.
Just sticking with field hockey for a second here. Beverly's just outside the top 10, but it looks like they'll get a home game. I mean, they're 13-1 now. Big game with Masco coming up next week. That'll determine the Northeastern Conference champion. But this has certainly been Beverly field hockey's best season in the power ranking age, which of course is still not that long, but they've been doing well. Masconomet, same thing in Division II. They should do pretty well there. And Nick, I want to touch on golf because we had sectionals yesterday. We have some more today. Got to figure St. John's is going to do well. Does Beverly have a shot? I mean, they had a great season. Does Marblehead have a shot? They had another strong season. Masconomet. Who do you see coming out of the links and maybe making a run at potentially qualifying for states next week?
Yeah, it's tough to say because it's just one round. They're playing 18 holes rather than 9. There's no max hole, so if you have a bad hole, you can get up to a 10 on one hole, and that'll just ruin your entire round. So I think it comes down to depth for these teams. You look at St. John's Prep; they certainly have the depth. I think you send 6 guys, you take your top 4 scores, they're going to be just fine. They can go 10 deep. So St. John's Prep has to be one of the favorites to come out of there and in Division One today. And as for Beverly, terrific season for them again in the NEC. But I do think that some of those lineups in the NEC are kind of top heavy. I haven't, I can't really speak on it because I haven't seen Beverly play in person, but just looking at some of their scores, I think they might be one of those teams that their depth kind of falls off a little bit after 4, 5, 6. So it's just going to depend how consistent those kids can be in one round of golf. And that's at Far Corner today, right?
Yeah.
So I played Far Corner the other day. Definitely a challenging course. The greens were rolling really fast. I think that's probably because they were preparing for this high school tournament. They were getting the greens in good shape, and it was really windy when I was there. It can get, it's a hilly course, so it can get really windy out there. I don't know how big of a factor that will be, but it's not exactly a 70-degree day today. So might see a few higher scores, but yeah, Beverly, they deserve a lot of credit for winning the NEC again and having a terrific year. And I think if they can get 4 good scores, they'll be right in the mix. And they definitely have 4 kids that are capable of doing that. It's just going to matter if they all do it on the same day.
All right. We have 3 weeks left in the football regular season. So we're 2/3 of the way through. Most teams have had their buys, but not everybody, whether it's strategic to have it later on or it's just how the schedule worked out or whatever. Let's stick with the same theme here, guys. Who's put themselves in a good position to make a nice run the rest of the regular season? And conversely, who really needs to get it going here a little bit if they want to, A, get into the playoffs, or B, if they're probably going to get in, but have a potential to set themselves up in for a home playoff game. And Willie, let's just to mix things up here. Let's start in what we always used to call the mongrels when we would do our stats and all the the teams that we have that aren't in leagues that we cover regularly. So let's start with Bishop Fenwick. They're in a great spot, 5-0, near the top of Division 5. Big test this week at Fian. Does a loss affect them? Does a win vault them? Like, where do you see them going?
Well, I would think that, right now Fenwick has a perfect score in the average margin of 14. Their opponent rating is negative at the moment, so that's hurting them. So I would assume that Fian will fix that. Now I would also assume that they're not going to beat Fian by 14 points, even if they win. Probably not going to win by 2 touchdowns. So, the ratings have to commiserately, you know, rise and fall with one another. But I think they put themselves in a good position. I mean, I think I look at this list here. I mean, we know that Shawsheen is legit. Some people might scoff at a tech school being their number one, but they got Sid Tidsley and he's legit and they're legit. I think were either in the Super Bowl last year or in the state semifinals, so that would be a heck of a game. Foxborough is always legit. They're number 5. So, if you're Fenwick, it's like, geez, I'm number 4. I'm sitting here staring at Foxborough in the state semis and then Shawsheen after that. It's like, geez, I don't know if I'm sorry, in the quarters, right? Foxborough will be the quarters. Shawsheen will be the semis. Like they might want to kind of try to get to 2 or 3 or 6 to avoid, to me, those are the potential landmines. But I think if you're Fenwick, you just keep doing what you're doing. Things are going to work out as they are. I mean, it hurts them probably a little bit that St. Mary's is so good and they won't factor into the power rankings, right? Because they get them on Thanksgiving, if I'm not mistaken, or
Night
Thanksgiving Eve
before
or whatever it
Thanksgiving.
is. So right now, I think you have 3 undefeated teams in the Catholic Central League standings. Now, Fian does have 1 loss to Zavarian, which, okay, throw that out. Everybody around here is losing to Zavarian, so that's fine. But that's going to be a heck of a race going forward. And when Fian plays St. Mary's, it'll be interesting to see. It's conceivable that Fenwick and St. Mary's on the day before Thanksgiving could be for the CCL title.
Okay. St. John's slipped from 1 to 2. I don't really think that makes a difference in Division 1. They play Malden Catholic this week, much improved Malden Catholic, 4-1, but realistically, I don't see the Prep having a lot of trouble. Then they go a couple of gauntlets back to back at CM and versus BC High. But they're not going to be moving far from the standings no matter what happens, really.
I think it's matchup based. I mean, they've been, to be honest with you, very fortunate over the years in that they have drawn the Merrimack Valley Conference teams in the first few rounds of the playoffs. They have not had to play a Springfield or a Zavarian until that Super Bowl, right? Right now, you're number 2. That means you're seeing Zavarian before the Super Bowl, right? So it's all going to be where they end up. And you'd almost rather be 2, 3, 4 if it means that you don't, if you can keep Zavarian and Springfield. I think those are the only 2 teams that are realistic, legitimate threats to St. John's. Again, the last bunch of years, they've been on the other side of the bracket. Now, is this the year that comes out in the wash and that coin lands heads instead of tails and we get a really good matchup in the quarters or the semis? We'll see. But to me, that's really the only thing that matters for St. John's, with all due respect to, the Needhams, the Centrals, the BC Highs. It's like, no. I mean, the only teams I'm worried about is Zavarian and Springfield. And, for all intents and purposes, with the Thanksgiving game, knock on wood, you don't want to see Zavarian. I mean, if you're going to see him back-to-back weeks, it's a lot more fun to go Thanksgiving and Super Bowl than go playoffs Thanksgiving. That's for sure.
Right. Nick, Gloucester. What do the Fishermen need to do to put themselves in a good position here, playoff-wise, and hopefully, move up from where they are? They don't want to be going on another road trip to play the number 1 seed in the first round. So does that mean they have to win out?
Well, they hung on. I thought they might drop out of the top 16 there, to be completely honest with you, after the loss last week. But they hung on to it, 3-2. They're at number 16.
I think that's because Swampscott, though, is so highly regarded.
Yeah, it's true, and they they hung with them for a little bit there, and only allowed 1 touchdown in the second half. I know that they're not looking at the game script; they're just looking at the final score for these rankings, but. They did some nice things against Swampscott. They just couldn't really move the ball on offense. And they're going to be hard pressed now without. I'm assuming that Jalen Severino is going to miss time. He looked like he got hit pretty hard last game. He had to be carted off. He might have even had to go to the hospital in the ambulance there. It looked like a concussion. He did walk off under his own power, but that's a kid that really changes things on offense for them with that extra burst of speed he's got getting to the outside, and he's had some big plays for them this season. I mean, not a ton of carries, but he's still among the leaders in rushing yards just because he gets such so many long runs. So that's going to be tough to replace him. I'm not sure if he's going to be out the season, but I can't imagine him playing this week. And then the other thing is their schedule coming up isn't, super challenging, I would say. I mean, they got Saugus coming up this week, and that's a game that they definitely can win. But how much is it going to really help them in the rankings? Then they got Falmouth the week after, and they close out the season with Winthrop. So
That's
would
where
say
they'll get their points is Winthrop.
Yeah, Winthrop is where they're going to get their points, and I think if they can go 2-1 and one of those wins is against Winthrop, they're definitely going to improve their ranking. But 3-0, it would be ideal for the Fishermen, and that's not going to be easy. They are on the road against Saugus, again, winnable game there, and then they come home for the 2 against Falmouth and Winthrop. So they just need to get their offense going a little bit more, get back to what they were doing against Salem, try and mix things up a little bit more. I think I know they're a run-heavy team in that wing T, but Swampscott was just all over them last game.
Willie, PVD Marblehead, playoff implications for both teams, I would say, depending on the outcome of this one. Can you talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly that Marblehead needs it more, which might sound a little silly, but Peabody is still number 8 in Division 2, even with their 2 losses. And their schedule, the change they made in their schedule to pick up Melrose and Winchester has paid dividends, exactly what they wanted. Winchester's number 5 in Division 2. So, and Melrose with the win over Swampscott is going great guns now. So, it looks to me like PBD can actually afford a loss and remain in the top 10 and contend for the top 8 there in Division 2. Whereas Marblehead, surprisingly to me, is number 15 in Division 4. Now, I look at them, 3 wins. The losses they have were to excellent teams, right? Bishop Fenwick, a top 5 team, and King Philip, number 2 or whatever they are in D2, defending Super Bowl champ. So to me, this power ranking is not representing how good Marblehead is. Now, Marblehead does have remaining on its schedule 2 very good teams in PBD and Masco. So you would assume that would raise their power ranking a little bit. But, it looks to me like in terms of a team that sort of, as you said, needs to do some work, I would look at Marblehead because I don't want to be 15th. I don't want to be going to Duxbury in the first round. And I don't think they deserve that kind of fate. They're a better football team than that. So hopefully they can string a few more wins together and they can, rise in that ranking. I mean, if they were to potentially lose to Peabody and Masco, who knows where they would end up. Or their power ranking might go up by virtue just of playing those teams. I mean, I don't know if Shepherd Hill is like really bad. I think of North Andover as a really good football team that plays a tough schedule in that MVC. So I'm a little bit perplexed, to be honest, with how low Marblehead is here. And conversely with Peabody, I think that, they can kind of afford. I mean, for them, it's really, you don't want to be 8 or 9, right? Because you don't want to necessarily see Catholic Memorial in that second round. Although, conceivably, if CM were to lose to the Prep or BC, King Philip could end up number 1, right? So who's to say, but if you're Peabody, I think you want to try to stay in that top 8, try to get a home game and then see what happens after that. I mean, I know, geez, if they could line up with Winchester in the second round, a team that they already beat, and take their chances, that'd be okay with them. I mean, and even if they were to lose and fall down to, say 11 or 12, if Winchester were 5, I mean, that's a game you'll take your chances with. They come down to the last play of the game in the playoffs, it probably would again. And that's what the playoffs are all about. That's totally fine. I want to ask you, Phil, about a team that's got some work to do. is Danvers.
Yeah.
What really concerns me about Danvers, and this kind of goes back to the point with Nick, Gloucester might not have to be in the top 16 because some of these teams in front of them might not reach that 3-game threshold. Like I look
Good
at
point.
Bishop Stang.
Yeah.
Bishop Stang's number 12. They got 1 win.
Right.
Good chance they're out, right? And Danvers, if they don't beat either Peabody or Marblehead, it doesn't matter where their power ranking is. They're not going to the playoffs.
That's
And
right.
so which of those games can they get, to try to get themselves in here?
That's a great question because they would be obvious underdogs to both. I understand why they run the double wing offense that they do. I mean, they're so young up front. They're so young in the backfield, with the exception of Owen Shanbar, the senior captain. So I get why they run the offense they do. However, it is certainly not predicated on coming back from multiple touchdown deficits, which, as I saw last week when they were at Masconomet, they're down 2 at halftime. Okay, manageable. You still got a whole half of football to play. Masconomet comes right out and scores. They get a turnover. They score again. Now it's 28-0 with a little over a quarter and a half to play, and they just don't have the kind of offense that can come back from a deficit like that. So in order to beat either one of those teams, they're going to have to get out front and stay out front and hold on to the football. It's really going to have to be, I mean, I hate to say it, it's going to be boring. They're going to have to grind out 3-4 yards of crack, hold on to the football, move down the field, eat up the clock. And when they have the ball, they can't be giving up any long touchdowns or long scoring drives, because they need to, as much as they need to control the ball, they're going to have to control the clock as well to win either of those games. I like that there's a 3-win minimum here in football because, if you're 2-6, you really shouldn't be a playoff team. So you got to earn it to get in. And I'm fine if you go in at 3-5 or 3-4 or whatever it might be. But Danvers is going to have to earn it. I think they're helped, certainly, as they always are, when they play the Tewksburys and the Reddings, and that'll help their points, as always. Unfortunately, one of their 2 wins is probably not going to help them that much. The win over Beverly. Beverly's ranked last in Division II, so that's really not helping them that much. That was by a point. They're going to have to upset one of those teams to have a chance to get in. You're right there. Speaking of which, I mean, could we have a team in Salem that goes from Super Bowl participant to out of the playoffs despite having a winning record? I mean, they'd qualify right now win-wise, but they're out of the mix in terms of where they rank.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's I don't know, 20. Yeah, that's another team similar to Marblehead. I mean, the schedule's hurting them. I mean, Kip is pretty good team that should help, and then Winthrop and Swampscott are both excellent teams, so that should help. So if they can keep if the rating goes positive, and if they don't even necessarily have to win those games, but if they can keep them close enough that their own margin doesn't totally go in the tank, I mean, I think they would probably be moving up. I mean, those are, with the exception of Danvers, I would say those are probably the 3 best teams on their schedule lined up right in a row there. I mean, I guess you throw Gloucester in that mix too, but so they're definitely backloaded here. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that right now their opponent rating is -5. So I wouldn't be surprised if they could shave 3-4, points off that, which would potentially, kind of throw them up into that 16-17 range, just by virtue of playing those better teams. I mean, Winthrop right now is number 11 and Swampscott's number 4. So, that's funny. All 3 of those teams have the identical records, 3-2.
Right.
And the Big Blue are 4th, and the Vikings are 11th, and the Witches are at 22. So, at this stage, it does matter who you play, but by the end of the season, those schedules could be similar as they finally play each other.
Well, unlike Gloucester, which is maybe in a little bit more of an advantageous position with teams ranked ahead of them currently, maybe not even qualifying win-wise for the playoffs, I don't think Salem's going to have that luxury looking at who's in front of them here.
No, they're gonna have to win some games and get that rating, on that middle column there. They're gonna have to get that sorted out. I mean, and
I mean, I'm looking at like they're going to have to win 2 of their last 3 probably to get in.
yeah, I mean, again, I haven't done the math. It really all depends on how that opponent rating. I mean, they definitely have to keep the games close. You start losing by 14, and that average margin is going to tank. But if they can keep it within a point or two, the losses might not hurt them that much. But
Right.
but they definitely do have some work to do for sure. And I guess we'd be remiss not to talk about Masconomet briefly. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a team that is number 5 in Division 3, which is, a pretty legitimate rating there. And they're only a point and a half outside of number 2. So, with a couple of more wins here, they could really, be in a position to do some damage. That they could end up one of our most highly seeded teams if they end up number 2 or number 3. And I think that's a testament to how quickly they've really bought into their new systems and learned their signals and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I think it's fair to say that they're probably ahead of schedule. They have a lot of junior starters with a first year coaching staff. I mean, I think I said it on a podcast at the beginning of the season that they were going to be a team to look out for in October and definitely look out for in 2025. I didn't expect them to be this good this fast. So that's a team that could really threaten. And again, like D3 is like really tough. I mean, you look at some of these teams and they could face in a second round, third round scenario. You're talking Reading, Billerica, Mansfield. I mean, there's Hingham, Dartmouth. I mean, there's a lot of Super Bowls between all those teams. So this D3 here is like a gauntlet.
Okay, we've touched on a lot of stuff today, covered a lot of bases. Thank you, gentlemen, for your expertise. I want to end today with another one of our blind rankings, North Shore Sports blind rankings. Okay, so I'm going to give you 5 things. You rank one at a time. We'll rank them blindly. This is kind of like I thought about this in honor of Willie's birthday yesterday. So I want to ask you, I'm going to give you 5 sports that are played during the fall sports season. Okay. Could be any fall sport at all, anything. Okay. How would you, at your current age, how well could you still compete in these sports? Okay.
Okay, I like it.
So let's, so Nick, you are what, early 30s? 30?
32.
32. All right, Willie, you've hit the big 4-0. And fortunately for me, I'm asking the questions. I'm not answering this one. So, man, I get that on here. So, all right. So, if you would start with field hockey, Willie.
I'm gonna put it 5. I'm not bending over. I'm not getting into this whole thing that we had last year with the boys and everything. I'm good. It's I never played catcher in baseball, and you really got to bend over and stuff. So, and I also use the backhand a lot, so I'd be getting a lot of whistles. I'm not interested.
Nick?
I'm going to put that right in the middle at 3. I've
Okay.
watched a decent amount of field hockey, and I feel like I could get out there and whack the ball around pretty decently. I could keep up speed-wise. My fiance was a big field hockey player. Maybe she could give me some tips there. So I feel pretty confident that I could hang out there and not be too terrible. So let's put it right in the middle of 3.
All right. Shout out to Becker. I like that. Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Soccer.
Willie, you go first on this one.
I'll go 3. Run around a little bit, but not great on the foot skills. So and obviously not great in the air with the height. So I'll go 3.
I can see you as a finisher, Willie, near the net, like on those balls that, those scrums out front with as a loose ball. You'd be elusive enough to, knock a shot or 2 in, I think.
Soccer, I'm going to go 4. Love the sport. Stopped playing it probably in about 4th grade. I think when I was playing, I played defense and kind of just booted the ball out of there from the back. So I could maybe still boot it pretty decently. Maybe keep up running wise for a little bit, but those guys are well conditioned and in terms of the tactics and everything and the foot skills, I don't think it's there. So I'm gonna go 4.
Volleyball.
I'll put that 4. No, yeah, yeah, I'll go 4. I mean, I think it's just, I wouldn't be able to play the front row on the side out, so that seems reasonable.
I'll go
He's
2.
serving ace though, Willie.
Yeah, but I mean, you got to go in the. I mean, I think he's still going to go in the front row. So
I'll go 2. I played a decent amount of volleyball in high school and gym class, beach volleyball during the summers. I get some height, so I think I could stick up there at the net and get some spikes and blocks. So I think I'd be decently competitive. Number 2.
Okay. Cross country.
Yeah, that means that's going to be.
I mean,
I know
that's got to be
Willie's
number 1. It's got to be number 1.
he
It's
runs a
easy.
lot.
I mean, I'm very slower than a lot of our runners, but at least it wouldn't take a lot off the body. So I'll throw cross country number 1. I mean, I wouldn't win, many races in the Northeast Conference, but I don't think I would place. I don't
Hey,
think I would place in
there
the
are
top.
tons of kids whose names never see the light of day in the newspaper, but that run every race and finish and, are great teammates and all. So there's no shame in that.
No,
What's that,
no.
about a 5K they run usually?
Usually,
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'll go 1, just because I know
Huh.
what's next.
Come on.
Well, I'm not going to go 5, and I don't have any other options, so I'm getting stuck at number 1. I can run a little bit, I could run a 5K. Like Willie. I'm not going to be winning any races, but I could cross the finish line and stay out there, stay hydrated.
All right. Last one. Water polo.
Water polo. I thought you were going to hit us with football. I was banking on it. Oh,
Yeah, I mean,
God.
2's the only spot I have left, but I mean, it's considering that we've not had a single score called in water polo in the history of the newspaper, I'm gonna throw a flag on this one and do this under protest.
I'm going 5 with that one too. I don't know the first thing about the sport. It seems like it takes a lot of endurance. Those guys look gassed when I watch it in the Olympics. I feel like I might drown, so I'm going 5. That seems right.
You know what? I was trying to think when I was coming up with this. I'm like, well, I can't do golf because Nick, that would obviously be your 1, and Willie, I know you're not a golfer. And I didn't want to do football because that almost seems too easy. And I was like, is there anything I'm forgetting here that we have? And I was like, all right, we have a water polo team out there. Never hear from them. I suppose I could have
St.
put
John's Prep, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, my buddy played water polo for them. But 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago.
All right, so we have 2. So, to our friends who coach out there, you got 2 budding cross-country runners here at the top of their list. Willie, I know you're legit because you beat me regularly in races. Nick, I'm not so sure about. You get stamina, I'll say that, but I don't know about a 5K, buddy.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you. It doesn't feel right in number 1, but that's the name of this game, right? So
it's the name of the game. So you have cross-country volleyball, which in hindsight probably should have been your number 1.
Probably, yeah.
Field hockey, soccer, and water polo. Willie, cross country, your Speedo for number 2, soccer, volleyball, and field hockey. Gentlemen, I appreciate it. It's always good to have some laughs at the end of the show like this, like we did. Thanks for being good sports. I appreciate it. For Nick Giannino, Matt Williams, I'm Phil Stacy. Enjoy the games. Make sure you're reading. See you on the fields. Take care.